Hello. This happened to me a few months ago. I just needed to share it with somebody. It all started at my friend's party. He's an artist who rented out a loft in the industrial part of town. If you can picture what a place like Detroit looked like in the 1920s, that's what this area looks like. A bunch of old turn-of-the-century factories crammed into 10 blocks. Most of them are abandoned. I partied a little too hard that night, and I decided to crash on the couch at the loft. I woke up at about 4 in the morning. The sun wasn't out yet, but you could still make things out in the dim blue light. I went to the bathroom, carefully tiptoeing around the people that were passed out on the floor. As I was taking a piss, I looked out the bathroom window and saw the panorama of deserted urban decay. I remembered how much I liked places like this. It was so dark and devoid of life, but it was strangely serene. I went back to the couch to try to fall back asleep, but after 45 minutes of just staring at the ceiling, I decided I didn't want to be there any longer. So I swallowed my pride and decided to wake up my girlfriend to beg her for a ride, since walking around the vacant streets at this time wasn't an option. Being the awesome girlfriend she was cool with it. She told me she would be there in about half an hour, and that she would give me a call when she was outside. My phone then died 10 minutes later, so I decided to sit by the window and watch for her car. I sat there for a while. Eventually my eyes started to get heavy, and I began to doze off. A crashing noise from outside woke me up. It wasn't loud or anything, but it was enough to snap me back into reality. I looked out the window and scanned the area, but I didn't see anything. However, across the street from the loft, near a mountain of garbage bags and one of those enormous dumpsters, I did see a computer and a monitor smashed against the floor that hadn't been there before. When my girlfriend arrived, I went downstairs and greeted her. Just as I was about to get in her car, a thought came to mind. I remembered a friend of mine who had blown out his power supply, so I decided to walk over to the dumpster to see what I could salvage. The monitor was worthless, but the tower seemed to have suffered almost no damage, so I put it in the trunk and we drove off. After about a week had passed, I had completely forgotten about it, until my girlfriend called me to let me know that it was still in her trunk and that she wanted it out. That night, I brought it home. Before I took it apart, I decided to hook it up to my monitor to see if it still worked. And to my surprise, it did. It ran Windows XP, and it looked like it had been wiped clean. I decided to do searches for words like tits and pussy, in hopes of finding some secret stash full of weird deviant porn that the previous owner had forgotten about. Morbid curiosity, I guess. But my search came up with nothing. There were no picture files. Then I searched for movies, and one came up. It was an AVI inside of a folder titled Barbie, hidden in the Windows System 32 directory. So I played it, and I felt a bit disturbed when I finished it. The movie was about an hour long, and it was made up of what seemed to be raw exported footage. The footage was of this woman sitting on a chair talking against a white backdrop. I skipped through most of the movie, as it was all the same continuous shot. I decided to sit through the footage to find out what she was talking about. 15 seconds into it, the audio became extremely bad, and her voice was drowned out in harsh static background noise. I couldn't make out a thing. I imported the footage into Final Cut, and tried to mess around with the levels to isolate her voice. It helped a little bit, but I still couldn't make out what she was saying. I was so intrigued now, and began to really pay attention to her face and body language. It seemed like she was being asked questions, because she stopped at times to listen and then continued talking. About 15 minutes into the footage, her face began to redden and contort, as if the questions were bothering her, but she continued to answer them anyway. Shortly after, she started to cry. She sobbed hysterically for the duration of the film. One of the few words that I could lip read was skin. She repeated this word many times throughout the footage, and at one point she even pulled out the skin of her arm and mouthed the word. She seemed to be really unhappy with her skin. It kept on building and building, and about 40 minutes in, she was crying so hard, she could barely look at the camera. She stopped talking at this point. The rest of the footage was just her crying with her head down. Oddly enough, she didn't get up or move. The screen just faded to black. I sat there fucking dumbfounded. I played the whole thing through many times that night, trying to find inflections and nuances in her movement that would reveal anything else about what was going on. I felt so dissatisfied. I wanted to know more. That was when I noticed that there was about 10 minutes left on the timeline after the screen went black. 2 minutes past the darkness, there was more footage. The footage was extremely shaky, almost unwatchable, and it depicted a pair of legs walking along some train tracks. My guess is that the camera was accidentally left on when it was being carried somewhere. The person in the video walked along the train tracks for about 6 minutes, then turned into the forest, and walked over what looked like a foliage, flattened by a piece of plywood. The person continued on this makeshift plywood road until the clip ended. My heart started beating with excitement because there were some train tracks a few miles away that looked very similar to the ones in the video. I had to check this out. I called up my friend Ezra. He's 6'4" and 250 pounds of mostly muscle. I convinced him to go on a little adventure with me. I'm no pushover myself, but I felt like if I was going wandering in the woods looking for God knows what, some extra muscle couldn't hurt. The whole idea of investigating the video had me so excited that I couldn't sleep. The next morning on a sunny Saturday, I took my flashlight, camera, 7-inch K-bar knife with a matted black finish and serrated edge, and went to go pick up Ezra. When I got to his house, he wasn't even awake. When I woke him up, he pretty much just told me to fuck off. I was already packed, and I had mentally prepared myself to do this, so I decided to go through it without him. I parked my car at the train station, took my stuff, and hopped onto the tracks. After walking for about 2 hours, I saw a broken piece of plywood, and my knees almost buckled with excitement. I searched the nearby foliage, and there it was. A little plywood trail leading off into the forest. I walked slowly along the trail, paying close attention to everything. I would stop occasionally and kneel down and listen for anything or anyone. But it was so quiet. This was one of the most nerve-wracking things that I had ever done. I didn't know what to expect at the end of this trail. The dense tree line gave way to a little island of grassy field, and then I saw it. A house, being consumed by the forest. From the looks of it, no one had lived there for maybe 20 to 30 years. I got out my camera and snapped a few pictures. A few yards away from the house was a tool shed made of rusty sheet metal. I sat there amongst the trees for a while, absorbing everything. I didn't want to go into the open field. I had a bad feeling that something would see me. It took me a while to muster up the courage to go up to the house. The door was partially open. I pushed it open with my flashlight, and was relieved that the inside was actually very well lit. I put the flashlight away, got my camera, and took some more photos. There was no furniture. The floor was riddled with bricks, wood, and other rubble, and some of the walls had huge holes in them. When I went further in to explore, I saw some things that I didn't pay much mind to in the moment, but now thinking about them in hindsight, they greatly disturbed me. The first thing that seemed a little odd was that one of the doors in the first room that I presumed led to the basement seemed a little too new for this house. It was also the only door that was locked. Also, when I made my way up to the second floor, I saw some chairs and a fold-up table that seemed a little too new to be there. But what disturbed me the most was what was in the bathroom. The dust on the mirror had been wiped away, and in the bathtub, I saw a clear plastic tarp that still had water droplets on it from when I presumed it was last washed clean. Then, I heard something moan really loud behind me. I jumped the fuck out of the second-story window and ran back to the tracks. Halfway there, I realized that the moaning was most likely a water pipe expanding or contracting. That little moment of relief gave way into horror as I started wondering why the water would be running in an abandoned house in the middle of the fucking woods. It's been a little over 2 months since that happened, and I haven't gone back there since. Nor do I plan to.